History. A live podcast sponsored by the Marin Fire History Group. All about the history of the fire service in Marin County, California. And now your host, retired Fire Chief Bill Lellis.
Good day and welcome to Marin County Fire Chief's historical website. Today is my pleasure to interview a long time friend and colleague, Fire Chief Jim Parrott. I've known Jim for over 50 years. I first met Jim when he was a student, as a fire science student at the College of Marin, and we were so impressed with his demeanor. We hired him as our instructor, and one of his first courses he taught for us was fire hydraulics, which I recall he was very nervous about, but enjoyed it, and since then has had a great career in that training. We're going to be talking about his career at Sausalito, and he left Sausalito to become the fire chief in the city of Pinole, California, and we'll take it from there. So, good morning, Jim, and thank you for taking part in the interview. And why don't you tell us a little about yourself?
Thanks, Bill. It's great to do full circle with you and get together again. I just want to say up front that I'm not one of the iconic Sausalito characters. I feel a little strange speaking on behalf of the department. There was plenty that spent their whole career there, and I was kind of an interloper. I was there for 14 years and went over to the East Bay. I'm a city kid. I grew up in San Francisco, fifth generation San Franciscan. My dad had been a Navy pilot in the war. My brother was a Huey pilot in Vietnam. I was one of the few in the lineage that wasn't in the military. But that's we're city people, and Sausalito was right across the bay.
What was the effects of your brother flying?
He was born to fly. He started flying when he was 14 in gliders. I don't know if people remember the old Lou Hurley Bird, the KGO little blue helicopter that was the first news helicopter. He learned to fly with Lou Hurley. Interestingly, Lou Hurley sent him on a mission to dump someone's ashes on the Farallon Islands all by himself when I think he was 16. And he did just that, although opening the door on the helicopter, the ashes blew over the entire interior, including in his ears and in his eyes, which I think Lou Hurley knew what was going to happen. But Tim went on to fly in Vietnam and sold airplanes, was very successful. He ended up succumbing to pancreatic cancer, most likely from Agent Orange in the Vietnam exposure.
How did you have a connection with Sausalito?
Well, growing up in the avenues, it was always foggy. My parents would drive us across the bay in the summer to look at blue sky and show us that it still existed. And we'd spend some time in Sausalito, and then we'd drive over the bridge back into the fog. I had a few friends in Sausalito. I did sail as a kid with the family that had a boat there. So I was around it. I always loved the town. I mean, what's not to like? And so any opportunity to, be there in any capacity, I think a lot of people in the world would agree that they'd love to be there as well.
I understand that you almost own Sausalito family.
Unbeknownst to me, when I was working there were some historians that were doing California history, and they have actual correspondence letters from early Californians, including from my great-great-grandfather who got to California in 1845. And there was a letter where William Richardson had Rancho Sausalito, and apparently he had done some business with my great-great-grandfather and owed him some money that he wasn't paying. My great-great-grandfather put a lien on Rancho Sausalito to get him to pay up, and attempted to purchase it from William Richardson, who unfortunately declined. In 1853.
Yeah. Almost.
Could have been. Could have been.
Tell us how you got interested in the fire service.
Um, you know, probably in the beginning, I'd say I wasn't interested. I was afraid of growing up in the avenues. We had the fire engines in San Francisco going by constantly, especially at night. As a little kid, I remember actually being afraid that they were coming to my house. I would get to the window and look and make sure that my family hadn't run out the door and left me behind. But my mother had a certain fascination with the fire service, and she would actually put us, my brother and I, in the car if she heard a certain number of engines and go look for whatever the commotion was. And so we went to some spectacular fires as young kids in San Francisco, Sutro Baths, Cliff House, Grace Cathedral, some of the really big fires. And it was terrifying, actually. It was a spectacle. I remember it well, but I think at the time I thought there's nothing I would rather not do than be in the fire service. But years later, I think the first exposure was when I was a motorcycle dirt rider. I thought it would be fun to join the motorcycle patrol, the National Motorcycle Patrol, which is like the ski patrol, and we would follow the races and pick up injured riders and attend to them after they fell down. And in the first aid training, I got exposed to the fire science program. I think the first time I really had given it any thought, and started attending classes with people like yourself. And I think once going down that road, it really looked like something that I did want to gravitate to.
So you became a seasonal firefighter with Cal Fire. What is
Yeah, I think that was really my first real exposure. I saw an ad in the Chronicle, when there was want ads, and it was for seasonal firefighter in the Sonoma Ranger unit with the California Division of Forestry under the Department of Conservation. And I applied, and I did get a position. I think they thought I was a city kid, and I probably really didn't know what I was signing up for. So they assigned me to the Sea Ranch station all the way up on the Mendocino coast while I was living in San Francisco. And I thought they would, I think they figured I would just throw in the towel after a few weeks, but I did hang in there long enough to where they reassigned me to the Russian River at Cazadero and Hilton area there. And I really enjoyed that. That was a great summer.
And I understand you became what we used to call a sleeper firefighter at Sausalito. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't recall exactly how that came to be. I think I think Sausalito was hosting fire science classes through College of Marin. I know they used to move them around to different locations. Sausalito had a big classroom. And so there were a number of active firefighters as well as wannabe firefighters in these classes. And I think that was where I learned of their interest in hiring some of these resident firefighters, sleepers. I think they called it resident firefighter. And so we were, a number of us, I think 6 or 8 of us, were added to the roster at Sausalito, which frankly didn't go over very well with the with the veteran crews that were already there.
Oh, but that was the start. That was my same start. I became a resident firefighter in Larkspur because it was free rent and had a roof over my head. So how did you become a paramedic?
Well, like a lot of people, like Dan White said, people started their careers in the ambulance business, and that was just kind of the logical thing to feel like you're getting your feet involved, getting your feet wet. We had to take EMT, and in EMT, you were doing the ambulance ride along, and then, okay, you're kind of doing different jobs, might as well work for the ambulance. And so I had done that, and the opportunity came up. Paramedics really weren't even in Marin County yet. San Francisco had them for a short while. And I saw an opportunity to go to John Adams College on the city dime, on San Francisco's expense, to take the paramedic program. So I was smart enough to jump on that and go through the training. I did end up getting certified as number 221 in the city, and I think they started the numbering at 100, so it was still pretty early in the game. I have to say, though, when I was doing city work, I didn't particularly enjoy it. It was actually um, the system was in it was not much fun. We would get extended calls across the city. We might have a 5-story apartment building. Fire department typically did not respond on medicals, and so we'd be bucking down a gurney down the stairs to the ambulance, and they might even have a pending call for us while we're still transporting. The call review system was pretty harsh on any errors that you might have made. So I quickly soured a little bit on the paramedic side. It's not fair to say everyone would have, but for me, I certainly was gravitating more for the fire side of things.
And then you tested for a permanent position with Sausalito, is that right?
I did. I think the paramedic background certainly helped me. I think there was 100 or 110 people applied, and I hadn't worn out my welcome as a resident there earlier, and so I did get the spot. Their single spot. I think firefighter Dick Betancourt was leaving to go to Idaho at the time, so I was lucky enough to take his spot.
Tell us, as a rookie firefighter, you were given the prestigious title of the association's president, and that led you to federal court in San Jose. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm afraid that is correct. It's one of those things where it's better to miss a meeting, but I guess the fire department was heading towards salary negotiations at the time. Of course, I was brand new, and any salary was fine with me. I was perfectly happy, but they decided I should be the association president as soon as I was hired. And we did start the negotiations with the city of Sausalito. At the same time, the firefighters wanted to join Local 1775, the Marin County Union. And as it turned out, the mayor and the city council were not keen on the fire department becoming a unionized fire department. Battalion Chief Fred Bunker, I think he was a captain at the time, and I were invited to go to a fancy lunch over in San Francisco, and the mayor and city manager were there. And during the course of the lunch, they told us that, well, if you guys won't join the union, we can find some more money for your contract. And so Fred and I looked at each other, thought that was odd. Somehow that discussion made its way to a attorney representing the union, and off we went to the races. Sausalito was being sued by the firefighters union for, impeding union activities. As far as the court goes, the case ended up in federal court in San Jose. I had been to a city council meeting a bit earlier, and we had no resolution. I think they were asking if we would just drop the suit, and I really didn't have any authority to do that one way or the other. But when I read the meeting minutes, it said that I had agreed to drop the lawsuit on behalf of the firefighters, which was news to me. So here we are in federal court, and the judge says, "Well, we don't know why we're here. It looks like the firefighters have dropped their suit." And I held up my little tape that I had surreptitiously gotten from the city clerk to record the actual minutes of the meeting, where it in fact said nothing about us dropping the lawsuit. So a long story short, the suit ended up essentially defaulting. We did join Local 1775, and at least we didn't have to pay city attorney fees by being a bad plaintiff. So in long story short, I think I wish it hadn't happened. It was a lot of commotion that could have been avoided with cooler heads, I think.
Well, yeah. But you were very fortunate. My son Michael worked for Sausalito for 5 years, and he was commuting down from Santa Rosa, and he always would tell me he would get there early, get a cup of coffee, sit on the bench by the bay, by the seal in the water, and just look out and experience his job in Sausalito and how great it was. But Sausalito is a world-renowned place to come to. So there were a lot of characters in that town. So tell us a little bit about the character of the city and the department relations.
Well, so it was 1976 when I started being affiliated with it. And you're absolutely right. Coming into Sausalito in the early morning, is just magical. Richardson Bay is there, the boats, the fog, people in town, the fishing boats. It's just really iconic. And it was a little different then. I think it's gentrified a bit more now, but you would go through the Gate 5 area, which was a ramshackle, almost looked like Shanghai Harbor. Get downtown, and little cafes were coming alive. We had interesting people in town. Sterling Hayden was a well-known actor and author, and he would stroll by with his suit and cane and large voice, and regale people in town. The rock and roll bands in the 70s, almost or many of them did their professional recording at the record plant studio on Marinship Way, and so they might be seen in town at restaurants and so forth. And we actually were able to go in sometimes into the viewing room and watch. We said we were on inspections, but we would go sometimes watch some of the recording from the viewing room while they were doing that. Other people, Melvin Belli, famous attorney, Martina Navratilova, she had a house in town. So you were surrounded by a lot of colorful and well-known people. You had a hippie element. You had a lot of artists, and it was just a really interesting place to be, on top of the visual, visual spectacular scenery that we had.
I recall Herb Cain writing a lot about the fire department.
Well, Herb Cain was great, and a longtime columnist in the San Francisco Chronicle. But a little before my time, he had written in his column about Sausalito Fire Department, the main station there, and he called it the House of Lonely Hearts. Unfortunately, there was a number of divorced firefighters that essentially were living there after being kicked out of the house or whatever. So their exploits were becoming well known as they ventured into the next phase of their life. So he caught wind of that and did mention that, as a matter of fact.
You had some great interested firefighters. I know there was a deep sea diver and a carpenter, and I mean, you just had a lot of characters in the department itself.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like I mentioned, I was one of the very few that hadn't been in the military, and almost everyone had been in one of the services, including the Coast Guard. Captain Lear, Lieutenant Lear at the time, was a professional Navy diver and continued on as a salvage diver when he wasn't at work in the fire department. Max Robertson, I believe, was on the battleship Idaho during World War II. We had Al Jones in the Marines, and Fred Bunker had been in the Air Force. And so I was kind of a little out of place, but because they had some of that background, there was a lot of skills that they brought with them, skills that I really didn't have. But we did have some really good carpenters, some really excellent mechanics. And in those days, you could basically build stuff and repair stuff and fix the building and do all those things, while you were at work. So, a lot of skills there.
I know when Chief Maston was there, he got them to give the center street of Sausalito for emergency apparatus. So you have a lane on one side and a lane on the other side. And in today's papers, it looks like they're trying to do away with that and make a bike lane or something like that. So the neighborhood seems to be mixed feelings on keep the emergency traffic rolling straight or allow people with bikes.
Oh, I hadn't heard of that, Bill. I would not recommend that. I mean, we were always able to share the lane a little bit with bicycles who would get out of the way because they didn't want to be in the street. And so they would sometimes use that. But once the air horns and sirens were coming, they could get out of the way. But I certainly wouldn't endorse trying to fight Bridgeway all the way out to the south end of town or up to the Golden Gate Bridge. I'm sure the Southern Marin Fire Department, our successor agency, is not endorsing getting rid of the center lane. And I didn't know Chief Maston did that. I was very forward thinking.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. You had at the end of town, which was coming into the county, you had the boat people. They were famous. They took a lot of press. It must have been interesting responding out to those boats.
I have some great memories of the houseboat area, Bill. Some of it was in the county that the Marin City County Station would handle. Obviously, any working incident, we would both be there. Gate 5 was in the city, and calls down there were just a different world. A lot of the residents were counterculture people. The last thing they were going to do is call for government services if they could help it. We would get calls sometimes on the business line in the middle of the night saying, I need the ambulance. I'll meet you at the phone booth out in the parking lot. No cops, don't bring any cops, And so we'd go down there, and then just finding these victims, you had to crawl over a houseboat and over planks and broken boards, and then another plank, and you're basically walking well out into the water to these sometimes pretty spectacular houseboats, but people would get all kinds of injuries or illness, and they wouldn't call until it was really serious. So usually they're in pretty bad shape, and then we had to figure out how to get them out. We actually had to dismantle the second floor of a really spectacular houseboat where someone with a badly broken leg, and the little spiral staircase was too small to even think about bringing them down. So we had to dismantle the side and get ladders out there and make quite an operation. So it was really colorful. I have good memories of it, but it was otherworldly, really, at the time.
Well, we just recently lost a battalion chief, Fred Bunker, but Fred Bunker was very important in developing a training program at Sausalito. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I have. It's so sad to lose Fred. Fred was a good friend, and he did a lot for me. He was the one who encouraged me to start teaching classes, even when I was, terrified to do that. And Fred had a really wide open view of what fire department in Sausalito should be doing. And, we could have stayed with just answering fire alarms and medicals, but, I think he caught on to the evolving needs of the community. And so when opportunities came up for us to expand and get into special rescue, cliff rescue for the GGNRA, the park rangers out there, and the coastal rescue and fire boats, and Fred was all in, and so he really endorsed us pursuing those avenues, and I gave him a lot of credit for that expanded sort of special rescue component that Sausalito had built up over the years. We did scuba rescue diving, had police officers as well. The coastal rescue with inflatable boats, and the fireboat, sort of long progression of improving the fireboat situation, coastal cliff rescue in the headlands. It really added to the depth of the service, and certainly to the enjoyment, I think, for the personnel that work there to have that expanded capability.
I see that you were very interested in joining the Origin and Cause team when you were in Sausalito. I know you are famous here in Pinole for your activities. Yeah. But tell us about that. That was a relatively new. I was on the original team myself, so what it was like when you guys took over.
Well, we all took classes from you, Bill, on investigation and photography and fire deaths and all kinds of those things. And so you were a pioneer yourself. But again, I think, between Fred and frankly Chief Bogle, did really endorse us to take different avenues and anything progressive or positive that would be good for the department. So there was a Marin County fire investigation team, members from many of the departments, worked under the county DA. And, Marin didn't have a whole lot of structure fires, but when they did, we tried to do a really good job of investigating. And so we would get a team together. Might be there was a rotation, but there might be 4 or 5 members, and we would respond. Even if I was on duty, the chief would detach me and send me with the team. Could be over in Stinson Beach or Mill Valley or San Rafael, and we would do as thorough a job as we could on the investigation. And I really did get a lot of experience with that. Enjoyed the investigation part, and made some good friends, and carried it on when I went to the East Bay.
You must have been a generation that was when computers first came into the business.
Yeah, I don't think I'd ever seen one when I was there, and it wasn't until later on that Battalion Chief Osborne got a Mac computer and brought it into the office, and we thought, what a silly thing there. And he would spend most of the day on it trying to learn code and get it to do something. Frankly, I didn't have the lure to it myself, but that was the first I had ever seen of it. We we still had a mimeograph machine for copying there, and the correlating chemicals that were overwhelming. That was how high tech we were at the time. So a Mac computer was pretty out of place, but it was early on in that program.
I am told that once you came over to Pinole, and you were offered to come back to Sausalito. Is that correct?
Yeah, I did. I had been in Pinole as the assistant chief and fire marshal for probably 5 years, and Chief Bogle retired, and they were looking for a fire chief. And I had just a great time, great memories of Sausalito and the people and everything. I only left earlier because of personal home searching. I had young kids, didn't want the commute that I had from Sonoma. So I had left, but I had left with difficulty. I really loved it there. And so I thought I'll apply for the fire chief, which was actually quite a good process. And they did offer me the job. I had to give it some serious thought. And I think between my home life and being over in the East Bay and not wanting the commute, and really I think I wanted to maintain my operational side, which I had in in Contra Costa. That really wasn't part of the chief job in Sausalito, so I did decline it. But I was proud to have an offer.
You retired when? When did you retire?
I retired 2011. They brought me back a couple of times, but so I was the chief in city of Pinole in what had been the Pinole Fire District as well, from I think 97 to 2011. So,
let me ask you, you've had a wonderful career. Is there anything you would change or do different if you had the opportunity, and when you're in the fire service?
Well, when we have our memories, we usually look back on all the things we liked and liked to do, and we try and not look back on the difficult moments. And we of course had some of those. Everyone does. But I don't really have any regrets. I could have stayed in Sausalito. I loved it. I credit the folks who put their whole career in there, because as you said, it's a world-class little city, and who wouldn't want to be protecting Sausalito and enjoying it for their career. I think I just felt in some ways that I had seen or done what I was going to do in Sausalito, and the East Bay brought a variety of different things. And what I would say about any small department, if people are given the opportunity and have the interest to pursue all the little avenues that the overall fire service can offer, investigation or training or prevention and plan check and, so many facets, special rescue, that small departments, if you're motivated that way, can offer all those things, as opposed to a very large department where you may be pigeonholed more in a single function for most of your career. So I am actually very happy that I poked around in a number of departments in different capacities, and really got some exposure in a broad spectrum, which I really enjoy. So no real regrets.
I see you returned to Sausalito because you're now the webmaster for the Sausalito Fire Department's historical website. And congratulations on that. I heard it's going really good. We'll add to this film, this tape, we'll add how to get to your site if somebody wants to look at Sausalito's history.
Well, I certainly wouldn't be a webmaster. I have no skills with with web design or maintaining one, but I did. I think through the investigation portion, and maybe I just always had a camera around, so I took a lot of photos in Sausalito, and a lot of the other members have photos. And after a number of years, I thought, well, it's kind of a shame we all have photos that are either going to get thrown away or, never to be seen again. And so I started a Facebook page since Sausalito, I think in 2012, became Southern Marin Fire Department. It no longer existed as Sausalito. So I started a Facebook page a couple of years ago to try and encourage past members or family members or anyone who's interested to either comment or add pictures, or we'll actually be adding videos at some point. But it's fun. It doesn't have a lot of members or views at this point, but I think a lot of departments could do the same. It's quite easy on Facebook to start a page or a site and invite people to add to it and not lose all those pictures and memories. So Sausalito Fire Department on Facebook, it's still a work in progress, but we've got some fun photos and comments, and as I said, eventually we'll have some a few videos that we were able to get in the day, and anyone can join. It may ask you to request to join. I'm not quite sure. I'm not very well versed in operating a Facebook, but anyway, you can get there and add your comments and photos if you have any. So.
Well, hey, Chief, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. We're good friends, and we meet every Friday and we have coffee. Have been doing it for a number of years. I just have enjoyed our relationship when you were first a student, and now look at you. And so I thank you again for participating and sharing your history of Sausalito, which is a great little city, one of the best little cities in the county, without a doubt. Yeah.
Well, let me finish by saying that for anybody watching, that Bill Lellis, when the chief of Larkspur, had kind of a tough reputation, and when we knew that he was coming to visit Chief Bogle in Sausalito, we would pretty much try and hide so as not to be picked out for some transgression or something by Chief Lellis. So Bill had quite a reputation, at least in our area of the county, and but we're really grown to appreciate Bill's incredible 60 years of fire service experience. And you're a great guy, Bill, and you and Dan and Paul. I appreciate all the history for Marin County that you're putting together. I think somebody can do their thesis on your findings at some point.
Well, yeah, I hope so. That's our goal, is that down some kid who's probably not even hired yet will come on board and want to do some history of one of the departments in one of the cities, and he'll be able to fall back on the old website that we're now working with. So
I think that's great.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing it, all of you.
And thank you. Okay. And we're signing off. Everyone out there, I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care. Goodbye.
Sure. Bye-bye.